not coming, man. We might as well just write him off. I haven't heard from him in 3 weeks.
What did you say to him?
I didn't say anything. I just don't think he. I don't think he.
Yeah.
Enjoyed that I wasn't very organized. But the problem is, right? So Ricky, you and I have been, between you and me and Vince, we've been doing a podcast for almost 9 years.
Yeah.
Never have I ever been organized. We've tried to be organized before, but we never stay organized for very long. We just do things, and it works. And it works for us, Ricky. So I mean, I don't.
Yeah.
So I mean,
I talked to my brother because I gotta see what his schedule's like because he's been using Linux hardcore more than me now. So that'd be good to get him in.
Yeah, just let me know. All right, let's get started. So I've learned something about my Linux usage. I don't care much for other distros. When I first started out, I was very much a distro hopper. You know, I would go from distro to distro. But now that I've been entrenched in Arch for so long, I can't leave. I can't leave it. You know, so we're going to be reviewing Fedora 26 today, and I think a lot of my thoughts on it are colored by the fact that it's not Arch. I think we should keep that in mind as we go on.
Mine aren't biased. I'll get into it.
All right, so
Fedora hates me.
Ricky, I'm pretty sure. I mean, and until today, all Linux hated you, at least for recording, audio. So, congratulations.
I know, and I got it going on Chromium. So,
what distro are you using right now? Ubuntu?
Yeah, I went back.
Is it
I'll go through the whole story.
Is it the Ubuntu long-term?
Latest. What is it? 17.
The one that just came out was 1710, but
1704 or something.
1710 just.
No, I'm on the one before that.
1710 just came out 3 or 4 days ago.
Yeah, I'm on the one before that
with Unity.
Yeah,
that was the last Unity release. We'll have to review the new
one
version. I used it. I didn't like it, but again, it's because it was an Arch. I was like, I missed the AUR. I'm sorry, I do. Apt is just not as good.
Hey.
It just isn't. All right. Anyway, so
that's the same thing I felt within Fedora. I was like, what's this yum bullshit, man? I was like, I can't get these fucking commands down and shit. It's like,
yeah. The thing is, I talked to some people who use Fedora as their main distro, and they swear by Yum and all the package management shit that goes on in Fedora. But I'm like you, I couldn't get it, and I think it was a lot of it because the distros are all over the place. I mean, all right, so it's kind of like Ubuntu, where not the distros, but the repositories are all over the place. For some reason, like with Ubuntu, the repository usually comes with the app that you want to install. So, like, if you wanted to install the Papyrus icon theme, it has its own it has its own PPA, which is its repository, right? Whereas in Fedora, they have like RPM Fusion repositories, and then some apps come packaged as .rpm, kind of like so. Chrome does that. I know Spotify has an RPM version, and Plex has one as well. But I mean, in theory, I guess it makes sense because it's kind of like the .deb packages from Debian base. But I don't know, for some reason I just don't care for that. Maybe it's just because I'm dumb, but I want all of the things in Package Manager to be all in one place, and I just didn't get that from Fedora. But I know for a fact that there is at least one. I don't know if this is in the Mate version only or if it's in GNOME as well. Because in the GNOME version, it uses the GNOME Software Center, kind of like Ubuntu does. But in Mate, it's a little bit more like the Arch, at least the GUI Arch package manager. Where you go through and everything just seems to be there, but you still have to go through and find your own repositories instead of there being just one grand community-driven repository like there is in Arch. So I don't know. The package manager, for me, really bothered me. But I think if I could just put it out of my mind that it's not Arch and it's not my favorite. I've become a Arch fanboy, Ricky. It's terrible. You know, I was on Facebook, so I'm a member of the Linux group on Facebook, the biggest one, and so and there's a, I mean, it's just kind of funny because when people use Arch, they preach about it, and then they get made fun of because there's this one guy who says, you know how somebody uses Arch, they're telling you about it because that's all they talk about. It's true. And we just hit the first 5 minutes of this podcast, and we just Arch is awesome. Arch is awesome.
And a Fedora review.
yeah. Fedora is not so awesome. All right, so let me just get
you go first.
Yeah, I will. All right, so first let's talk about what's new. So we've never, because we're a new podcast, we haven't actually reviewed Fedora before. We're only a few episodes in. So a lot of this is going to be reviewing Fedora itself instead of what's new in Fedora 26. But just quickly, we'll go over what's new in the 26. They improved the Qt app compatibility, which is Qt is what KDE uses, and Alex Qt and Alex Qt uses. And then it was just more of they updated. So they're late. At the time, they were at the latest version of GNOME, but now they're 2 versions old already. And they updated the Fedora Media Writer, and then there's some other things that were
very pretty interface, very slick.
Yeah, I hate GNOME with a passion. All right, so this isn't a Fedora problem. This is a me hating GNOME problem. I just don't like GNOME 3 at all. I find it not intuitive to use. So like I know with extensions you can change this. So I know I'm gonna, like, in the comments I'm gonna see somebody saying, well, you can change it dash to dock and make it so that the application launcher and the favorites of your applications stay on the screen all the time. You can do that, but by default.
Oh, see, because I was looking for that. That was the first thing I was looking for.
You can do that, but you have to go through and install dash to dock, right? It makes it a little bit more like Unity, and that has the icons on the screen all the time, and your app launcher on the screen all the time. And you have to install that as a GNOME extension. But what they don't tell you is that you can't do that in straight up Fedora or straight up GNOME. You have to install GNOME tweak tools, or tweaks as it's called now, and then you have to go find where the extensions, and then you have to go on the internet, get into the terminal, install the dash to dock extension, because you can't do it from the tweak tool. And then you can go through and do it. I mean, that is the epitome of not user friendly right there. And it's a simple thing. I mean, it's the simplest thing ever to want your app launcher on the screen all the time. I don't want to have to keep hitting my mouse over there along the side in order for
the most annoying thing.
Yeah, and that's not a Fedora thing. That's a GNOME thing, and it's terrible. And I mean, because that's what you do. I mean, one of the biggest things you do on your computer is launch apps. Yeah. And along the bottom, you want your favorite apps. Then you want to be able to get into an app launcher or an app folder or whatever. I mean, you do it hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of times a day. You don't want that thing hidden away. Now I understand why they did it. They were trying to design this for more compact laptop screens or whatever. But I mean, for people who use real man machines, I mean, it's just it's not a thing. So I hate GNOME. That's the reason why when I first installed this, I installed the KDE version of Fedora. And the problem is if Fedora is not, or if KDE is not implemented correctly for some reason, it's very buggy. And in the spin of Fedora that uses KDE, it's very, very buggy. And because I had such a problem with the package manager, and because I never used Yum before, I never used I never used any of the GUI things before. I didn't know how to go through and fix the things I know needed to be fixed. Yeah. So like in Arch, there's a problem in Arch KDE where there's really bad screen tearing on NVIDIA graphics cards. And it took me ages and ages. I mean, it was one of the real reasons why I couldn't use KDE when I first, came back to Linux, because you remember the day I discovered KDE, Ricky? We were talking on Telegram. I was like, okay, KDE is so awesome. But the next day I had to leave it because I said it was so buggy. I mean, there were several things that, that made me say that, but the biggest thing was that screen tearing. And it took me, almost a month to figure out how to fix it. But once I did, now I know how to fix that on Arch. It's just downloading the NVIDIA settings manager or whatever, and then enabling a setting each. Now I have to do it each time I start up a computer, but it's not a huge thing. I just got to figure out how to do that in the terminal, and eventually I will when I'm not lazy. But I couldn't figure that out.
Bash script or something.
Yeah, I mean, there's a way to do it. It's just you have to save the file in the in a certain place where it starts up with the computer. But none of that I can figure out how to do on Fedora. And the screen tearing was way worse. And then there's other things like if you're into customizing your panels and stuff like that, sometimes the ability to customize your panel in non-well implemented KE, that just disappears for no reason. And this isn't a Fedora problem really, because I've seen it on Kubuntu and I saw it on KDE Neon as well, as where the add panel option in the context menu just disappeared for no apparent reason. I mean, it's just a bug, and it's with KDE, not necessarily Fedora. But again, I don't have any of those problems on the Arch system that I use. So comparing the two is just really hard. So I went and uninstalled the KDE version and just decided, well, I'm going to go with GNOME because that's GNOME. So if you went and installed Fedora today, you went to get fedora.org or whatever it is, and you just download it, GNOME is what you're going to get. You actually have to go seriously hunt for the other spins of it if you want to use it. So you're going to use GNOME, and I think we're going to talk about the installation process. I'm going to let you talk a little bit more about that because you had some problems installing it. But once you install it, it's just a GNOME. It's just straight up GNOME. There's not any frills or extensions or anything that are pre-installed like the newest Ubuntu. That they went through and changed a whole bunch of different things. So I mean, it's going to come down to the package management system. If you can get into that, but so there was two problems. That was the GNOME that I didn't care for, and it was seems the only spin that I could get to work well. I tried downloading the Mate version. That had a lot of bugs, but I've been finding out that Mate has a lot of bugs pretty much in every distro for some reason.
Okay.
I'm guessing that it's not a Mate thing; it's more of a my computer thing. But see, Mate is supposed to be built for computers that are really old, and my computer's really old. And it just, it's not. For some reason, it's just going to get it to work very well. Even though there's a lot of things in Mate that are really good, especially the latest version of Ubuntu Mate. There's some really good ideas in there. But so it seemed like no matter where I went to Fedora, there was bugs, except for in the GNOME version. And as we've discussed, I don't like GNOME at all. So that kind of colored I think a lot of my problems with Fedora's package management system is that I don't like GNOME. So I was always going into it as, I have to use GNOME today. And I was like, no, I don't want to. You can't make me. Please. I don't want to use GNOME. All right, so Ricky, let's talk about your problems with installing it, because I didn't have any problems, but it wasn't as intuitive as it should have been. So let's talk about your experience installing Fedora.
Okay, so Fedora hates me for some reason. I don't know why. I've tried to install Fedora now. This would be 6 times. Previous to this, I've tried to install it 4 different times on 4 different computers. 2 desktops, 2 laptops, but they were all Dell. This 5th time is also a Dell machine, so I don't know if it doesn't like the Dell hardware, what is in the Dell hardware, or what, but it's always been like it just hates me. Like, okay, so I took the same USB key to begin with the first time I ever did it. The same key I had Ubuntu on that had no problems. I went through the same process, wrote Fedora on it, tried to install to the machine from the USB key. And for some reason, I don't know why, halfway through the installation, I started getting a ton of errors. It couldn't install. I like formatted it or whatever, and I put Ubuntu back on it, and I used it, and it was fine. So I disregarded that key. I got a new key, and I put it, and I finally got the installation of Fedora to finish on the machine. This is the very first time. Booted the machine, was nothing but problems. It was flaky. It wasn't stable at all. It was just a nightmare. Like drivers, oh, I don't even want to get started. Like nothing worked on the stupid thing. I was in forum after forum trying to figure out how to correct it, and then I just said, okay, fuck this. I'm just gonna go back to Ubuntu because this shit just doesn't like me. Okay, so this time, and I had that experience, like I said, on the other three, the two desktops and the other laptop.
The lunch and learn is about to begin in the main boardroom.
Okay, so yeah, on the same, I had the same problem, not with the installation media, but with the same, the installation seemed very unstable, giving me a ton of errors. Drivers just weren't there. On the forums, I'm trying to find drivers. I'm getting really old information that was no good anymore. It's just such a nightmare. So this time around, it's a newer machine. It's been working on Ubuntu fine. I said, okay, let's try this shit again. And again, it was the same nightmare. It was a fucking, like, I wiped my Ubuntu, installed. I tried 3 different times to install, and it just wouldn't go. One time, the install wouldn't go through. Second time, it went through, but it just, like, was a disaster to try and even use the thing. The screen was flickering, like, every 3 seconds. It was like, holy fuck. So then, I just said, okay, fuck this. I went back to Ubuntu. I put it in a VM through VirtualBox. But for me, I don't really like that because I don't get the full experience using it in virtual. I just did it because, like, I had to, we were going to do the podcast and I needed to experience it to have something to say. When we talked the other day, I got the idea because I was on my Mac. I said, okay, what the hell? Let me, try to put it on a virtual machine on my Mac and see how that goes, right? Just in comparison to see, like, is it really a Dell thing? Like, does it not like this Dell hardware? Okay, putting it into the virtual machine was really easy. But again, once it was in there, I found I had problems. It wasn't as pronounced, wasn't as bad. But, like, for instance, in my VM, I could not use the normal GNOME. I had to go, like, when you're in the login screen, you can switch it. So I had to go to the GNOME Classic. Like, if I put it in the, like, just let it boot up and log in, it would flicker like no one's business. Yeah. I couldn't figure out if it was with the mouse. I tried a different mouse. I changed the settings. I maxed out.
What the problem is, Ricky,
yeah.
The problem is, I think, that you were having, especially with those flickering and the screen problems you're having, is that Fedora uses Wayland instead of Xorg as the display manager. Wayland doesn't
know what the fuck it's doing.
Yeah, Wayland doesn't work well with proprietary drivers at all in my experience. Yeah. So you have to stay away from proprietary drivers, and especially if you have NVIDIA graphics, it doesn't like it at all, even with the open source drivers. I don't, like, on your Dell machines. What kind of graphics do those have? Are those Intel integrated?
Well, the ones before, the older ones that I had, one was integrated, one was an NVIDIA card, but this new one is an AMD.
Yeah, see, I don't have an AMD to test a Wayland on, but I know so I have a Dell machine here that has Intel integrated graphics on the chip.
Yeah.
And it worked okay, but it was very buggy.
Yeah.
my main PC, my desktop, it has a NVIDIA graphics card, and it wouldn't run at all.
Yeah.
Wayland just crapped out on that. And that's the same problem I had a little bit with the newest Ubuntu, because that also uses Wayland. But the difference is with the newest Ubuntu, they still package Xorg with it.
Oh, okay.
So you can go through and load the system using Xorg, which is great because Xorg works. And I mean, everybody always. All right, so if you don't know what we're talking about with Xorg and Wayland, these are display managers. It's what drives the image to your display. I don't get into the technical details of it. I don't really. I mean, I understand the bare minimum, and I'm learning more and more, as I go along. But anyways, basically, Xorg's been around forever. It's what runs, it's what runs, almost every distro of Linux has been Xorg for the longest time. It's very, very old, and people have a problem with it because it is old. It's not secure at all.
Okay.
It has a lot of bugs and it has a lot of problems, but it works for the majority of people. It has the fewest problems. All right, so Fedora and Red Hat, which is the RPM guys, they developed Wayland, right? And that's supposed to be the successor to Xorg, but it's just not there yet, right? It's too new. It doesn't work very well with NVIDIA. It doesn't work well with proprietary drivers. And Canonical, which does Ubuntu, for the longest time we're working on something alongside it called Mir, which was the competitor to Wayland. They were like a competing technology, but they've scrapped that now along with Unity. So Wayland is going to be the future of everything. Unfortunately, the problem is nothing iterates very. I mean, if you've been in the Linux community for a long time, you'll know that things don't change very, very fast. It's a lot better now than it used to be. You get changes more often now, and things get better faster. But still, I mean, if you used Linux in 2000, like a KDE version of Linux in 2000, and you came and used KDE now, it looks more modern, but there's still things that are KDE about it. You know what I mean? Things just don't change drastically like that. Things don't get fixed fast unless it's like a security flaw or whatever that's in the background. Something like Wayland is just not going to get developed very fast, and that's why them using Wayland is just it's a lot harder on people who are using machines that are it's just because they haven't developed it thoroughly enough yet. And it's going to get there eventually. It's just going to take a decade or whatever.
Take some time.
It's going to take a long time. It's and they need to scrap GNOME, right? I mean, because GNOME sucks. Like I said, again, it's me. Maybe GNOME and Wayland don't work together. I mean, I don't know anything about programming at all. I mean, I took programming my first semester at college, but I was I flunked out of that class. That's why I went to history, because I'm smart enough to understand that. But maybe GNOME just doesn't like Wayland, because Arch uses some Wayland, but it's still mostly Xorg. So there's
I mean, like I said, when I switched to GNOME Classic, it was fine. Like the flicker was gone. It was rock solid. But like whatever their newest implementation is, that shit don't work.
Yes. So only it wasn't nearly as bad as yours, Ricky. Once I got a machine that I knew it was going to run on because of the Wayland problems, installing it wasn't hard, and I didn't have significant issues. It went through perfectly fine. It's just so one of the best things about Ubuntu is that it's very, I mean, as long as you don't have like really weird or old hardware, installing it is really easy, right? It's just get it onto a key, get into the boot menu, go through the steps. Then you're using Ubuntu, right? I mean, it's just really easy. Very rarely are you going to have major problems that are debilitating enough where you have to scrap it and go back to Windows. Whereas with Fedora, it's not nearly as user friendly. The installer is not as nearly as good. Especially the graphical interface they use to deal with partitions. I was really confused. So like they don't, instead of a step-by-step kind of process, they have a menu-based system. So like it shows you all the things you have to do on a page, and then you have to go and click at each one, and then you go back to the page where like your to-do list or whatever. It's not like a step-by-step, do this, then this, then this.
Okay.
You can do it whatever order you want to do. But the Partition Manager just wasn't nearly as intuitive as something like on Anthropos or Ubuntu or anything like that. It just was not nearly as good. So I decided that I was going to try to install Gparted, which is the
Oh yeah.
So,
yeah.
But that didn't work at all. So I ended up having to use the GUI and the installer, and it just it was fine. I eventually figured it out, but it wasn't anywhere near user friendly. So that's the one thing I came across in Fedora. Like the first thing any user is going to experience is your install process. And I mean, Fedora is not for new users. It's just not. It's very much like OpenSUSE, where it's not easy to install. It's not Debian. I mean, so I always make the mistake of comparing Ubuntu to Debian, but in reality, Ubuntu is so much easier to install than Debian. I tried to install Debian, I couldn't do it.
Yeah,
I got it onto a key and launched it. I was like, I don't know what the hell I'm doing.
Maybe we should do that one next.
Oh no, well, I don't think so, because I don't want people to get installed, because it doesn't. So like it doesn't load. So it requires the internet, but it doesn't load automatically drivers to help you connect to it. You have to know. You have to know where your drivers are located on your system, and if you don't have them, then you have to go find them on another computer, install them on onto your USB key. I mean, this was just, I was like, no, I'm not doing that. I don't care to do that at all. Now I know, like the text installer for Arch does the same kind of thing. So that's why I use Anthropos to do it, because it's it's like, I know that's cheating, but I don't care all that much. So Fedora is kind of like that. I mean, Fedora is not nearly as bad as Debian or OpenSUSE in that regard, because it works. And like, you can connect to the internet, you can format your hard drives. It's just not nearly as intuitive as something like Ubuntu or Linux Mint. It's just not. It's just, and that's the biggest problem I found, is like, I'm a new user, I want to try Fedora. Let me try Fedora, and it just I had to.
Well, I mean, I had the same thing too, right? Because like even when I did the installation, I mean, the installation was pretty straightforward. I'll say one thing I really did like about the Fedora installation is there's one step where it asks you to assign an administrator's password, and then it asks you to assign a user password, and it asks you if the user should be an administrator. And that I find is a very Windowsy-ish kind of thing, but I like it. Whereas, with other installations that I've done, you either run it as root or you run it as your user, and your user doesn't, you know what I mean? Like, root doesn't have a password. You can set one, and then if you're a user, you have to do sudo. But the thing is, sudo doesn't always work for everything. That's what I've found. I've found that sometimes it is easier, or you do have to log in as root and maybe change the permissions on the file you're trying to install so your user can actually install it. You know what I mean? Like, I've had that kind of issues crop up because I'm not in there as root. Because initially when I started doing installations and stuff, everyone on the forums I was on said, "Oh, never run it as root because it's not secure, blah blah blah." So I did like that, but even at the end, like, there's nothing it doesn't tell you like, okay, it's done, like finish. The thing says quit. So you're kind of like, well, if I quit this, is it gonna disregard all my changes? Like it's so, and then even once you do that, you reboot into the interface. Like I was like kind of looking around and saying, okay, so because I'm used to Ubuntu with the dock, and I'm like, but even on Kali, even though with Kali it's the same sort of thing where you click, it does have a dock as well, but you also have the click where you can get the menus, but it has like a down arrow, so you have that visual like, oh, here I click here, whereas this one just has the word applications, right? It's like, yeah, it is kind of obvious, but then not really at the same
GNOME
time.
Sucks. GNOME sucks. You know what? It's just not very good.
So like the first thing I was looking for was the launcher, because I was like, I need the dock. I can't deal with this shit.
The one thing I learned, Ricky, is that if on any of these distros where you can't find the launcher or the dock or whatever, if you just hit the square key, which is the Windows key on most keyboards, it just shows you it. It just
it'll pop the menu up or whatever.
Well, but the problem is, I mean, I know a lot of Linux users are keyboard based. You know, they like their keyboard shortcuts, and I'm getting there. I know I like a lot of. I mean, okay, so I grew up in the GUI era. You know, I'm you know, I'm a young guy, so I didn't. You know, I was too young for DOS and the Commodore 64. That was before my time, and all these. You know, my first Windows operating system in school was like Mac OS 6 or something. I don't know. It was all GUI based, and then we went to Windows 95 and Windows 98 and Windows XP and all that stuff. And there was always pictures. And I was like, oh, that's my generation. We're the pictures generation. We don't like words.
Yeah.
Really hard. Reading is hard. So I was very. It's always that. And pictures equates to the use of the mouse, right? So I'm not. The keyboard is just not, the primary means of getting around an operating system for me. But the more I use Linux, the more I'm getting used to some of these the keyboard commands or whatever. But for some reason, GNOME is more. So like, there's this YouTuber named Joe Collins, I think. He's very into GNOME. He really likes it. And the reason he likes it is because it's keyboard driven, right? Or at least it can be keyboard driven. It's super key brings you your apps, all controlled, and the arrow keys automatically takes you to your next desktop. But I mean, that's not you don't know that without looking it up. And if you're coming from Windows or you're coming from Mac, you want to see again. It's the visual things that you're going to go for first. I mean, eventually you're going to get into command line and terminal and all the keyboard shortcuts. Eventually, the longer you use Linux, the more you're going to find you have to kind of do those things. But at first, you want to be able to get into just the visual stuff. That's why you want to talk about the visual package management software. How is that? Whether it's the GNOME Software Center or you're using Arch and you're using just the AUR visual GUI thing. And that's what you want to do at first. But with GNOME, for some reason, everything's hidden. It just shows you a desktop, and you're like, what the hell do I do now? I don't know what I'm supposed to do now. And if you're new to it, the only way you're going to know is by moving your mouse around a little bit, and eventually you're going to come across that hot zone there on the left-hand side, and that's going to finally get you to your launcher, but it's going to be completely by accident unless you figure out how to Google it. But you can only Google it if you go onto a different computer, because how are you supposed to find Chrome or Firefox or whatever? It's terrible. GNOME sucks. It's terrible.
Yeah.
And we lost the one viewer we had. How sad. We actually had a live viewer, Rick. We haven't had a live viewer in 10 years.
Oh, wow.
It's hilarious. He didn't stay around for very long. I got sick of me bitching about GNOME. All right, so what time is it? It's 12:40. All right, why don't we go ahead and jump into do you have anything else to say about Fedora, Ricky?
No, I think I'm good. It don't like me.
Yeah,
That's my takeaway.
I don't like it very much either. All right, so do you have a pick of the week for us, Ricky?
Yep, I do.
Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and go first, and I'll think of one.
Okay, so my pick of the pick of the week is gonna be very automotive related. It's a site that's audizine.com.
That doesn't sound very Linuxy at all, Ricky.
Hey, our picks can be anything, right?
Sure.
That's just because this week I don't have any software related picks, and I don't want to pick.
You could have chosen something for Nanowrimo, man. That's what I did.
Oh yeah, that's true. Next week. Or I could have even chosen iPhone X, but see, I decided I wouldn't do that.
That's because iPhone sucks. Android, man. Android runs Linux.
Yeah, bastardized version of it.
Hey, Linux is Linux, man.
Yeah, so my choice is audizine.com. That's because recently I got an Audi. This site, if you go into the forums, just awesome set of guys, a lot of knowledge there. If you're thinking about getting an Audi, I would suggest joining up and reading through, because there's a lot of stuff that I didn't know before I bought my car that I wish I had known. Thankfully, no major, nothing major happened. But if you knew beforehand, it's really good, because then once you get your vehicle, you can do the necessary maintenance and stuff. So it's a great place. Forums are great. And that's my pick for this week. Change it up, shake it up.
Yeah. Okay. So, unlike Ricky, I decided I was going to choose something for Linux. All right, so NaNoWriMo starts in
days?
4 days.
Like 4 days.
Yeah, and this will be my 10th year doing NaNoWriMo.
I think this is like my 4th or 5th.
Yeah. So obviously I needed to find something that's going to distract me from writing, because I can't finish NaNoWriMo. That would break tradition. So I've been going through and trying to find a novel software writing program for Linux, and there's a whole bunch of them. It's like writers use Linux. It's great. There are
interesting to see if any famous writers use Linux.
You never know. All right, so there's a whole bunch of them, and I've tried a couple. First is Bibisco, Bibisco. It's very, very based on character creation. So it doesn't really work for my purposes so much, because I'm not creating my own characters. I'm not going to write fan fiction again this year. But if you're writing original, it's very good. I also like the layout of that one. Then there's Manuscript with a K. It's really weird spelled. And I didn't really care for that one as much, but it was mainly because I'm not an outliner, and that one's really focused on outlining. The one that I chose for this is called O Storybook, and while the interface isn't fantastic, it's actually pretty good, and I really, really enjoy it. It's free. It's open source, and it obviously works on Linux, but it also works on Windows and Mac. So if you want to.
Is it free on those as well?
I think so. Yeah. Like I said, I haven't used Windows at all, but yeah, it's yeah. I mean, all right. So the biggest problem I found is it requires Java in order to run. So, so if you don't have Java on your machine, it's not going to work completely. But outside of that, it worked fine for me, and it was really good. I really enjoy it. Now, whether or not I'm actually going to use it this year or not, I don't know, because so what's different this year than normal, Ricky, is I put in a lot of effort prior to NaNoWriMo and figure out what I'm going to write, and that's a lot. A lot different than what I normally do, which is just I'm going to show up for NaNoWriMo. I'm going to do it. And that's always worked so well. But anyways, so I put a lot of effort in this year, so I don't really. the idea of a software where helps you organize stuff is kind of great. I don't want to get distracted by the software, so I'll probably just end up writing in LibreOffice.
Okay,
But
yeah.
the idea of these is the reason why I'm kind of writing it. So, if you search for open source tools for writers, you'll find an article where there's 11 of them. There's a whole bunch of different ones. I was really surprised at how many different. It's just it's kind of awesome that Linux has all these different writing tools that you didn't really think that it was going to have. All right, so that is it for us this time. If you want to get in contact with us, you can do so at many different ways. You can email us at email@thelinuxcast.com. You can follow us on Twitter at @thelinuxcast. I'm at MTWB. Ricky's at Ricky_Williams1. The new guy has already quit. He doesn't like us anymore, and that's sad, but whatever. I don't care. Anyways,
we're hard on the interns.
Yeah, our next episode will happen in November, and I believe that will be the last episode of the year. And the topic I want to do on that one, Ricky, seeing as that's my turn, is going to be things that we find wrong with Linux. So,
that should be easy.
So, for example, or things that. All right, so let me put it a different way. Things that we miss from Windows. Things that we wish. We wish.
Yeah, that Linux had it.
That Linux had, but doesn't. I've been very surprised. I don't really want to get into this topic too much right now, but I've been very, very surprised at how many programs have been able to find in Linux that, while not the same as Windows, do just as well on Linux.
Yeah.
So, like, Kdenlive is a great alternative to Premiere. Audacity, while I hate the interface because it looks like it was designed for Windows 3.1, actually works once you decide to use it. It's very, very powerful.
Yeah.
Plex works on here. Spotify works on here. There's only like 2 programs that I use on Windows that I haven't been able to explicitly or find an alternative to on Linux, and that's iTunes for movies and TV shows. I haven't been able to find a manager for that, and I haven't been able to replace. I can't remember the second one. I mean, obviously, I don't use it often enough if I don't remember what the hell it was. But anyways, that's the kind of topic we'll talk about next. That happens at the end of November, and we will see you then. We gotta get Reki back to work.
All right, take it easy.